it's Nathan. Welcome to episode number 35 of the Tech Brews Chat series. Today, I'm diving into a big IT trend that a lot of large organizations are going through right now, and funny enough, it has a lot to do with the way that you check up on how your car is running. In IT organizations, the checking up on how your car is running is referred to as observability. To break that down, observability is all about orienting systems and applications within an IT environment so you can see what's going on inside them with the information that they're outputting so you can understand what's happening within that application or data source. This allows the person managing the IT infrastructure to make decisions that keep the systems running smoothly and properly. Just like cars have temperature gauges, or they have an alert that tells you the tire pressure, or it's the fuel gauge that tells you when your fuel is low, applications have outputs like these as well. By looking at these outputs that come out of the apps, you can look at how an individual app is doing, the apps as a whole are doing, or how the system is doing as a whole. These little squiggly outputs coming from the apps and the systems is the information that makes up observability and allows the engineer to make decisions on the next step forward with development or the best way to go about fixing a problem. However, the data sources of these outputs are going through a massive shift. Whereas before in cars, all you would get was just a really generic check engine light. Now there's lots of different things that tell you even more information about that generic notification. So you have stuff like, hey, it's time to change your oil. You have a certain amount of miles left before you need to change it. Or your coolant is low. That's what's causing the problem. Or maybe it's time to say, hey, get your car tires rotated, and you have a certain amount of miles left on that. This is a huge pro because it allows the user to make better decisions on how to drive their car. But the con, just by the structure and nature of how it is that it's 3 parts rather than 1. So it's a decentralized system, so it makes it a little tougher to connect and monitor the system as a whole. Companies are looking at their IT infrastructures and applications in the same manner. What used to be one giant, big, monolithic application in the past is now being broken down into microservices-based architectures using modern tooling like Kubernetes for the containerization. If it wasn't complicated enough already, a lot of these older observability tools that would capture information from these old apps just weren't built for these new architectures. This often results in data monitoring tools going into system overload, leaving the user feeling completely overwhelmed by unhelpful alerts. Now, while there are some monitoring vendors that can handle these new architectures, they end up punishing you by making you pay an arm and a leg for using these new architectures. Furthermore, some of these legacy application performance monitoring vendors aren't even capable of collecting data at the speed that these new architectures require. In short, organizations are realizing that they can't rely on the same data sources they had in the past, and so they're turning towards modern tooling in the open source space like Prometheus, Cortex, and Loki to handle the monitoring of their new microservices-based architectures. So as this move to the new microservices architecture continues, and as companies continue to use the new open source tooling for their environments over the legacy monitoring solutions, 2 big things happen. Number one, the company ends up saving a lot more money because they're not paying as much for these legacy monitoring solutions. They're using more open source. Number two, engineers are far more productive in responding to threats and incidents and making strategic decisions that actually matter to the business rather than putting out fires. But hey, going from a gasoline car to a new electric car is far from black and white. And moving from a legacy environment to a new modern architecture is no different. What you'll find though is that companies are rarely squarely in gasoline stage or squarely in the electric car stage. They're really in this hybrid in between. This hybrid requires really complex dashboards and data sources to make sure that your IT infrastructure in the company remains healthy during the transition. And this is where Grafana comes in. Odds are, if you're involved in one of these transformation initiatives, you may already be a big fan of the Grafana open source visualization layer, which brings data together and makes it way easier to work with. But where we really excel at is in assisting organizations in the collection and storage of these complex data sources that these new microservices-based architectures and moves to the cloud are driving. In line with us eating and breathing observability, we heavily contribute to and support a lot of leading open source projects and commercial collection options for these modern environments. This includes open source projects like Prometheus, Cortex, Loki, Thanos, and Jaeger so that you can easily visualize all of your metrics, traces, and logs in a single pane of glass and visualize all your data in one place. Now, if you have no idea what microservices-based architecture is, or you're wondering why I'm talking about the Avengers, check out the comments below. I pasted a few helpful links that help me learn these topics. On the flip side, if you do know what I'm talking about and your organization is looking for a way to include your legacy and modern architectures in one spot and you have a few questions, shoot me a message and we can plan on a time to meet up for a virtual coffee. That pretty much sums it all up, from old to new. Now for the brew of the week. The brew of the week is from a distillery up in Kentucky called MB Roland. I really love MB Roland because it has a massive flavor taste on the front and it's barrel proof, so it gives you a little kick at the finish. Even better, it tastes like a pricey whiskey, but at a fraction of the cost. This thing is only 40 bucks. So guys, this has been episode number 35. Thank you so much for watching. Comment your thoughts below. Would love to hear them. Cheers.